So we're back today in our last part of our series of posture. We're going to be talking about worship and what it looks like to each of us today. So worship, though, is something that we have to keep in mind. It's not about us. It's about praising God. We should be less focused on what we get out of it and more focused on the God that we're worshiping, the one true God, the God of Abraham. That being said, though, worship is still a way for us to connect with God. It's still a way for us to build that relationship with God, to know God more. But God still matters more than our connection. God still matters more than what we get out of it. And God should be first and foremost in worship. We're going to be in Romans 12, 1 and 2 today. It says this: "Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." We have to give ourselves up to God. We have to give up our body. If God was able to send his son to die on the cross for us, if God was able to do that, we have to offer ourselves back to God. God made us, he made everything around us. The least we can do is give ourselves back to him. When we worship, we should focus on God. Like I said, we need to focus on God first and foremost, not on others. It doesn't matter what people are doing around us. All that matters is that we're coming before God and we're offering ourselves back to him. That's what worship is. It's common to see it through music, and yeah, that's how a lot of us worship. It's through song. But even then, even when you're singing, you're praising God, it doesn't matter what the people around you are doing. It doesn't matter if they're just sitting down, acting like nothing's happening. It doesn't matter if their arms are stretched out wide. What matters is that you're praising God. You're connecting with him and offering yourself back to him wholeheartedly. When we come to God, we need to be ready to be vulnerable as well. We need to open up to him. We have to be okay with saying, "God, here I am. Oh, here's God. This is what I'm going through. God, guide me. God, everything I have, it's all yours." It's okay to say that. It's okay to be vulnerable. I know society often tells us that it's not. We got to keep everything locked in. If we have problems, that's for a therapist. That's not to be open to the world about. I know society's normalized shutting everything down, but that shouldn't be that way. We need to be able to open up to God, to say, "Here I am, Lord. I'm all yours." It doesn't matter what the world thinks. We shouldn't be afraid to be judged, but that also means we shouldn't be the ones to judge. Yes, it doesn't matter what the world thinks. They're going to tell us one thing. But like in the second verse, we need to not conform. We should not conform to the patterns of this world. We have to be different. We have to be set aside and called out and living in a way that will honor God more. We need to live to make God known. We need to live to honor and glorify him. That's through worship that we get to honor him, that we get to praise him, that we get to sing praises to his name, or do something that glorifies him in any other way. People will try to tell us how to worship. They'll try to tell us when to worship. But it doesn't matter what they say, because God calls us to each worship in different ways at different times. Even within the church, people try to tell you how to worship and say, "No, you have to just sit and say the words. That's it. When you're worshiping to a song, you have to just sit and say the words." But that's not true. They might say, "It only counts if your arms are outstretched like this, or if your arms are straight up vertical like this. It only counts like that." That's what they'll try to tell you. They'll say, "Hey, you have to be like this, like you're receiving." It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you worship. What matters is who you worship. And like like I said, worship can take many forms. It can take a lot more forms than we probably think about. You don't have to worship to music. You don't have to have music to worship. You can worship through your sport or your art. Maybe you paint, and that's a way to worship God. You can paint verses or things that are pleasing to God, and scenes from Scripture. You can paint that and please God that way. You can praise Him through a sport that you play by honoring Him through the way you play each game, by honoring Him through the way that you live out your faith on the field or court. Maybe worship is through your job and how you use your job to touch the lives of those around you and point your life back to God and point your character back to God and say, all that I am is because of Him. Worship takes so many forms. But that doesn't mean worship can't be from song either. And even then, there's so many different ways to worship. None being better than the other, none being right or wrong. What makes worship worship is the God that you worship. It doesn't matter if your arms are like this. It doesn't matter if you're jumping around, bouncing around. It doesn't matter if you're sitting like this, trying to receive what God has for you. It doesn't matter if you're on your knees in prayer through worship. It doesn't. What matters is God, putting Him first, making Him a priority, and offering yourself back to Him. How are you going to worship? When are you going to worship? Where are you going to worship? That's what I want you to think about this week. How are you going to worship God? When and where? Is it when you wake up every morning? Are you going to play a song of worship as you're getting ready just to turn your mind back to God? Is it through song? Or is it through some other way? Is it through the way that you treat others with love? Is it through the way that you serve God's people? The way that you serve God's creation? Is it through a sport you play? I know right now sports aren't very prevalent, but there's so many other ways to get involved in your community and serve and make God known. So how are you going to worship? How is God going to be glorified through your life? How are you going to point the finger back to God and make Him known? How are you going to worship?